Defensive players rule the 2026 NFL Draft midseason rankings, with Caleb Downs, Reuben Bain Jr., and Arvell Reese at the top. Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore are vying for the top QB spot, but Lenoris Sellers and Ty Simpson are in the mix. 2. Arizona State's Jordan Tyson is the top-rated offensive player and receiver. The 2026 NFL Draft is exactly 6 months away, leaving plenty of time for the picture to shift in the league's much-hyped annual player selection meeting. But the first half of the college football season has already done much to reset the prevailing wisdom about the upcoming class. New top quarterbacks have emerged, while others have faded in a position group that offers little in the way of certainty. Several top prospects at other positions have entrenched themselves as likely early selections, while a handful of stars have shot to the top of draft boards amid breakout seasons. And yet there's still bound to be more changes to come in the weeks and months ahead as the action continues and the pre-draft process ramps up. Caleb Downs, Ohio State. If you had to pick a player most likely to become an All-Pro from this class, he'd be your choice. Downs' stock might hinge on whether teams get stuck on his positional label or can envision him as more of the do-everything defender. He's demonstrated himself to be for a Buckeyes defense, allowing just 5.9 points per game. He can clean up almost anything on the back end and be a legitimate force against the run. Reuben Bain Jr., DE, Miami, Flea. At 6'3" and 275 pounds, he's a true terror off the edge. But unlike many pass-rushing prospects his age, that's not due to pure speed. Instead, Bain makes life miserable for opposing blockers by locking on and uprooting them. When he's not merely driving through linemen, he's proven adept at shedding them with active hands. Though his consistent pressure has yielded just 2 sacks in 2025, his forcefulness in both the pass and run game augurs well for his pro projection. Arvell Reese, LB, Ohio State. The college football world has taken a shine to the Buckeyes' breakout defender, who leads his team with 42 tackles. But his true admirers are likely waiting at the next level. At 6'4" and 243 pounds, Reese can comfortably spy quarterbacks or handle coverage assignments. His real appeal, however, might be in what he can afford a pass rush, as his impressive closing speed has helped him secure 5 1-2 sacks so far this season. Jordan Tyson, WR, Arizona State. He entered the season as the front-runner to be the first receiver taken in what seemed to be shaping up as a lackluster class at the position. But while his peers have stepped up their game, so too has Tyson, a fluid threat who can separate at all 3 levels. The 6'2", 200-pound target ranks 5th among Power 4 players with 628 receiving yards and 2nd with 8 touchdown catches. Cal. Fernando Mendoza, QB, Indiana at 6'5" and 225 pounds, the Cal transfer has long looked the part of a top quarterback pick. Now he's playing like one too. Mendoza has been nearly flawless in orchestrating Indiana's prolific attack, throwing 21 touchdowns with just 2 interceptions while averaging 9.7 yards per attempt. Precision is no problem for him, as he rhythmically picks apart defenses from the pocket with a 73.5% completion rate. But things can be a little bit for him when he's forced off his spot. So proving he can extend plays and thrive out of structure would help answer one of the few outstanding questions about his play. Dante Moore, QB. Oregon, the former 5-star recruit's rapid ascension has changed the complexion of a quarterback class that once looked short on first-round options. In his first season at the helm at Oregon after a rocky true freshman debut in 2023 at UCLA, Moore has shown poise beyond his years, tossing 19 touchdowns while exploiting defenses both from the pocket and on the move. Only a redshirt sophomore, he doesn't have to hop into this year's draft if things get more difficult down the stretch and his stock takes a hit. If he remains on his current trajectory, though, there might not be much reason to stick around. Jeremiah Love, RB, Notre Dame, a 228-yard rushing outing against USC, drove home how much distance Love has built on the pack for the title of college football's best back. A springy and elastic runner, the 6'0", 214-pound ball carrier can transform a backfield with his big playability. He's not as complete a player as Ashton Jeanty was last year, however, and matching the former. Boise State back's draft slot looks like a stretch given how some of the teams that used top picks on running backs in April have continued to struggle in the ground game. K. Peter Woods, DT Clemson, the full leap into consistent dominance hasn't yet materialized amid the Tigers' widespread woes. Still, when Woods is on, there's no interior presence that's more disruptive. The high-end flashes and upper-echelon athleticism are enough to keep him squarely in the conversation for a top 5 spot in the draft, but he'd help his cause significantly with a strong finish to the season. Francis Mauigoa, OT Miami, fly up in a deep class for offensive tackles. Mauigoa shapes up as the stoutest option. That's certainly true from a physique standpoint, as the 6'6", 335-pounder resembles a boulder at right tackle. But he's also been arguably the most reliable blocker of all the top prospects in this class, with his pass protection chops catching up to his formidable work paving holes in the run game. Kenyon Sadiq. TE, Oregon, the 6'3", 245-pounder has entered full-scale offensive weapon territory, moving beyond the bounds of typical tight end usage while threatening defenses both down the seam and after the catch. Sadiq, however, is not merely a glorified receiver, as he's also established himself as a devastating downfield blocker in the run game. Avion Terrell, CB, Clemson. If Clemson had more players like Terrell, perhaps the school's season wouldn't have gone south so quickly. The younger brother of Atlanta Falcons cornerback A.J. Terrell plays far bigger than his 5'11", 180-pound frame, especially when it comes to run support and operating as a blitzer. NFL teams will covet him for how he balances aggression in pursuing the ball in coverage with seldom giving up big plays. Mansour Delane, CB, LSU. The term shutdown corner is thrown around too liberally, but the label certainly seems warranted in capturing the Virginia Tech transfer's work this season. Delane has seldom been tested, but surrendered essentially nothing. 6 catches on 23 targets, in the few instances in which teams have looked his way. Smooth and savvy in every phase of coverage. The 6'0", 190-pound corner will be especially appealing to teams that lean heavily on man-to-man matchups. Keldrick Falk, DE, Auburn at the very least. He should thrive as a run-stopping force, engulfing ball carriers at the line of scrimmage with his 6'6", 285-pound frame. What will really put him over the top, though, is additional development as a pass rusher after he collected 7 sacks in 2024. There haven't been many signs of progress so far this fall, but Falk's penchant for shedding blocks underscores untapped upside. Carnell Tate, WR, Ohio State to some. He might just be the link between rookie sensation Emeka Egbuka and forthcoming phenom Jeremiah Smith in Ohio State's incredible pipeline of pro receivers. But the Buckeyes' newest go-to target has made a name for himself by averaging 17.3 yards per catch. The 6'3", 195-pounder is particularly valuable when bailing out his quarterback with his body control along the sidelines and knack for securing contested catches, though he's also demonstrated a nuanced approach to freeing himself against both man and zone coverages. Makai Lemon, WRUSCI in another era, his modest size, 5'11" and 195 pounds, might have relegated him to a spot on day 2 or beyond. With former USC standout Amon-Ra St. Brown and other undersized receivers thriving as critical weapons for their respective offenses, however, he stands to cash in on a season that has seen him sprint out to the lead in receiving yards among Power 4 players with 758. Quick and sure-handed, Lemon figures to remain a high-volume target who will feast in the short to intermediate area. T.J. Parker, D.E., Clemson at 6'3" and 260 pounds with a wealth of production, 16-1-2 sacks, 32 tackles for loss. In his first 2 seasons, Parker meets several of the standards for a first-round edge rusher, but his junior campaign has seen him take a bit of a step back, particularly in pressuring opposing quarterbacks. With a little more consistency, though, his bully ball approach should translate well to the next level. David Bailey, OLB Texas Tech hotly pursued in the transfer portal. He's gone from intriguing edge rusher at Stanford to the Football Bowl subdivision sack leader with 10-1-2. The 6'3", 250-pounder's game is predicated on speed and with good reason. Bailey is a blur off the line of scrimmage, and he can snake past blockers or beat them with an impressive array of moves. Questions about his strength might lead to his rush stalling out at times and leave him vulnerable in the run game. But defenders with this much juice don't tend to hang around long. Ain. Caden Proctor, OT, Alabama 1. Look at the 6'7", 366-pound blindside protector reveals that he figures to be a unique evaluation. Proctor sparked some concerns with his early struggles, but he's since settled down. Though his size will leave some unease about his leverage and balance, he's an outstanding athlete who has the makeup to handle NFL edge rushers.